Welcome to the Exhibit A podcast.
Welcome to Exhibit A. And before we begin, let me just say, good morning, America. We've got Allie Smyser with us. How are you today, Allie?
I'm doing great.
You know, I say good morning, America in jest because, I feel like I'm in that movie, Good Morning, Vietnam, with Robin Williams. You just say that when things are really tough and you want to kind of be sarcastic and cheer people up. I mean, right now I'm looking out the window and it is cloudy, it's cold, it's been raining for a week. I got the chills. Everybody's been ordered to be in, and I just can't think of anything more dreary. So good morning, America, and good morning to you, Allie.
Well, thank you. Yeah, good morning. I have to say that the staying at home feels especially difficult when it's raining out, but we need the rain so much, so I'm trying to appreciate that.
I hear you, and I think it's really a blessing for two reasons. Number one, like you said, we really need rain in Southern California, so it could rain until June as far as I'm concerned because we need it so badly.
Yeah.
But also, we get a lot of credit here in California for being good people because we've been staying inside, like the governor says, we're wearing our masks. Well, we don't really have a choice. When you got weather like that, you might as well be in Chicago, for crying out loud.
Right.
I don't want to spoil everybody's feelings that they're being good boys and girls and stuff, but this weather is really a blessing in a lot of ways. So today we're going to talk about a very serious matter that does deal with the crisis, and that is an advanced directive, something that you specialize in, right, Allie?
That is correct. Yes, that's part of the planning that we do for people.
Okay, and let's just start off with, what is an advanced directive?
An advanced directive is a document that in California we use to designate an agent to make your healthcare decisions for you. So it's separate from your financial decisions. It specifically has to do with who you want to have make your healthcare decisions if you're not able to do it, and you also get an opportunity to share what your wishes are, how you want the end of your life handled, if you want pain control, if you want a religious leader to be there. I mean, an array of options that you can put into this document to share your wishes.
Okay, now do you have to have like a trust or a will in order to have an advanced directive?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Everybody should have an advanced directive. Even if you have, everybody over the age of 18 should have an advanced directive, because what you do have is you have a body and you have your health and you probably have some specific desires that you'd like to share with people. Okay,
so is it possible there are people that have estate planning right now that don't have advanced directives?
It is possible. I would say it's typical to be part of the package, that you get, but that's not always the case. I've also been telling people that even if you have done planning, pull it out now. Now's your opportunity. Make sure the agent is the person that you still want making your decisions. Make sure maybe things have changed about how you perceive medical intervention, especially in this climate, right? So now's your opportunity, whether you have one or not, to think about it and think either you want to get one or you want to make some changes to the one you have.
Okay. Well, you recently did something that was kind of like something you'd see in Hollywood or something. I was reading my emails yesterday and the whole office was applauding you because you had gone out and met with two clients of yours regarding this matter. Could you set it up for us? How did it happen?
Yeah, so actually they're existing clients. They're both doctors and they have two little kids, like 5 and 3 or something like that. So we had done their planning, but they have several pieces of rental property that we were going to do some different kind of planning around, but they just didn't have time. Like anything, it gets put to the back burner. So they contacted me to say the husband was going to start working in the COVID-19 ward or whatever area for their hospital next week. And so what do we need to do with these properties? And I was like, oh my gosh, we have to get those properties into the trust, because they were even, some are just in his name, some are just in her name. So it's not like it would have even passed to the surviving spouse without some kind of court intervention. So we were able to prepare the deeds really quickly. They drove up to my driveway. I went out with my notary book and my mask and my gloves. I had them bring their own pens. And we signed the deeds right there on on the roof of their car, and we kept our distance. I mean, it was like a military operation, but it just makes me feel better that we were able to get this done for them.
Yeah, I saw the photograph. Apparently your husband took a photograph, right?
Yes, yeah. Thankfully, he had the presence of mind to capture this special moment in history, right?
Yeah, I think it's one for the history books. And when we get that photo, we're going to mount it on our wall in the office here, man. I just love that. It looked so cool that you're providing that service. And, I have to say, doctors sometimes make house calls, but in this case, they were coming to your house to get some service. It was really cool seeing you with the mask and the gloves and meeting. I mean, that's really what has to be done today. People have to be flexible and be able to reach out to folks and think out of the box in a lot of ways.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's essential. I mean, it's necessary for these people. And I agree. I mean, we all have to gauge what we're comfortable with, but in this case, I really did think it was necessary.
Okay, so I've got some basic questions to ask you that I know that a lot of our audience would want to know. I mean, this is not something that a lot of people know about. And so I'm going to start off by asking you, does the court have to appoint a family member as the agent for these advanced directives?
No, and so so with your advanced directive, you can appoint anybody, right? So it doesn't have to be a family member. As a matter of fact, some people don't want family members because they might be too close. You know what I mean? Like, this is a perfect example. This happens if you're not married, and people think, oh, maybe I'm going to appoint my parent, right? My mom or dad. But then is your mom or dad, are they going to be able to make that tough decision, to maybe not continue life support or, again, just have to make these difficult decisions. The other thing is some people have someone in their lives that do have some medical background or experience, or I, for example, have a very close friend who was an advocate for her mother and her father and her stepfather when they were all in the hospital. So she's a great choice, right? Because she has the experience of navigating that system, which we all kind of know can be very difficult.
So is the proper term agent or advocate when we're dealing with
agent? Yeah, agent.
Okay. And does it require a court proceeding?
No. No, just it's the state of California has a statutory form. I happen to like that statutory form, even though it's not that personal, but the hospitals and the doctors are familiar with it. You know what I mean? And we can add to it. You can also just have, a Word document, right? That isn't necessarily in the form. But again, I think it's a little bit more difficult for the medical professionals to be able to say, okay, is this a valid document?
Right. So what problems arise when people don't have advanced directives?
Oh, well, first of all, the doctor or the hospital is not going to necessarily know who to talk to. So they, oftentimes if someone's married, they'll turn to a spouse, but that's not always the case. If there's children, they'll turn to the children, but if there's conflicts among the children, they don't know who to take instruction from. And in a worst case scenario, the court would have to intervene and appoint someone as a conservator. So the conservator is a court-appointed person that's actually legally has legal authority to make decisions for someone. And that's really the worst case scenario.
Okay. as far as age limits, is there an age limit as to the people that need these directives? I guess what I'm asking you is are minors expected to get these as well?
No, so a minor, automatically, right, the parent has authority to make medical decisions. As a matter of fact, they can't, right? Like when my minor children go to the doctor, I have to go with them. But once a child turns 18, it doesn't matter that they're still living in your house and you're still paying their bills. They are a legal adult, and a parent does not have legal authority to make the decisions. Now, practically, the doctor or hospital will turn to the parent in an emergency situation, but I would not rely on that. I mean, the advance directive is such a simple document that if you're over 18, do one. I mean, it's just there's really no reason not to.
Okay. So are there situations where you think that non-family members are better suited to be an agent?
Absolutely.
Yeah. A little bit about that. Could you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah. So number one, and this happens in our office a lot, right? Because we're a family law firm, is if you've got separated or divorcing spouses, they're still married, right? You haven't gotten the final judgment, they're still married. That spouse is going to stand first in line to make healthcare decisions for them.
Wait a minute. Wait. You're talking about in the middle of a divorce, two people that aren't getting along, they possibly hate each other, they possibly have ill will and want to do harm to each other, and you're saying that without one of these, that spouse could be the person who decides life or death for you?
100%.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a really good reason to think seriously about who you name here. You mentioned something else too. I think that you said something like, family members, maybe they're too close to make these decisions where somebody else might be more objective or follow directions better?
Yeah, so sometimes, the agent is going to have to make decisions that maybe they don't agree with or they wouldn't make for themselves, right? So, if this is an example in my own family that's a little bit different. So the agent also makes your decisions. This is under California law. You're an agent under your advanced healthcare directive also makes decisions about your burial and your funeral, and that's the person that the funeral home is going to call to make all the decisions. Well, my husband wants something very different for his post-death than I would have for him. So, I have to be able to put aside what I would want so that he can have what he wants, right? And that's kind of, it's a little bit of a joke in our house, but that's more the case. So, if your mother, for example, if I decide, I don't want to be intubated, that's just too much for me. And my mother is my agent, and she has to make this decision that, like, I'm not going to be intubated and I might die. That's a hard thing for someone to do. So you really want someone who's going to be able to make the decision based on what you want, not necessarily on what they want.
Yeah, you just mentioned that, like your mom being the person, the viewpoints might be different. The religious viewpoints might be different, and that feeling that I don't want to lose my loved one, and I want one more chance. God's going to make this person right, or make my loved one healthy again, and I just want to hang in there. And that might not be what you want.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what about specificity? We talk about what this advanced directive is, but how much detail can you put into these things?
You can put a lot of detail in. I mean, our typical one, the statutory form that I mentioned that I use is very vague. So, and it's really just, you're giving your agent all the decision-making power, and I hope that they do the right thing, right? I add additional language. My standard one adds additional language that, that if you're in a persistent vegetative state, or you're brain dead, or you're terminal, that you don't want intubation, CPR, emergency resuscitation. So it's really like, if your time has come that you want pain meds, it also includes that you want, pain medication, even if it brings on death quicker, but that you don't want that excessive intervention. I've also done ones for people that are pages and pages of really specific things. I mean, I had one woman who was terrified of her ribs breaking, and so she didn't want those chest compressions. That it just, to her, there was, she had some experience, and so she included that. I had one client who did not want, he had certain music that he wanted played, and he was an atheist, and he didn't want his family, this is one that he picked someone other than his family, because he didn't want his family to bring in any religious people at all. That was really important to him. So, it just, you can make it as elaborate as you want. If you don't want to be alone, or you want to make sure you're kept warm, or, there's any number of things that you can include in there.
Yeah. Very, very personal. I was with my father-in-law and my lovely wife, who cared for him during his his last 2 weeks. And one thing that she did is she put headphones on him and played Sinatra music. And it was so cool, because it was before he became unconscious. He was tapping his toe, and you can see it was comfortable like that. And I thought that was the sweetest thing in the world. So for me, Allie, make sure that when you do mine, you've already done mine, but just check it. I want smooth jazz music on mine. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So, but I mean, that really is an important detail. I had a friend before say that, there's one thing that he wants in life. He says when he dies, he wants his wife and his daughter right next to him, and stuff. And I think that thinking about when we go and how that's going to be, it really makes a difference. You see on TV with these poor people that are passing on, and they don't have anybody with them, and they don't have any details, and I think that the service that you're providing really is very humane, and it really makes life a little sweeter, when we get to choose how it's going to end.
Right. And ultimately it's a gift to the people that are making the decision. So, right. So I had it when my mom was dying, she hadn't done anything. And so and she also really wasn't able to talk about it. It was just, she was ill, but it was really hard for her to talk about it. And so I couldn't get much information about what she wanted. And then it was on me to make these decisions. And I tried, but I don't know, it would have been so much easier on me if she could have communicated what she wanted, and I could have done it, but just, there's a lot, it's already so hard. And then there's a lot of questioning and guilt. And did I do the right thing? And did she want to be cremated? Did she want to be buried? I just didn't know. It was hard. It made a bad situation even worse.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why you got into the work that you do.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that that's, a great way to describe why people need this is you don't want to put the burden, on your family members to have to decide issues like that, because there's a guilt that I think would go along with that. It's like, wow, mom may not have wanted to be cremated, or she may not want to be buried. There's a lot of details like that. So let me ask you this. Can people take care of this, get this done, this advanced directive, remotely, or does it require them to come into your office and meet with you face to face?
So I would say this is new uncharted territory. It does require, under the California probate code, it requires a notarization or 2 witnesses, right? I have talked to doctors before this crisis. I've talked to hospitals, and they really don't like to accept them unless it's notarized. For them, it just is more of a, for their liability, just to have the notarization. They have more confidence in that. I would say, though, in this time, if you can get 2 witnesses, or even if you can't get 2 witnesses, you would be, I can't imagine a situation in which you couldn't explain to the healthcare provider, like, we're in this unprecedented time, right? Like, I couldn't get 2 witnesses, or I couldn't get a notary. The other thing that I haven't had to do yet, but I anticipate doing here, as this progresses, is just the attorney having to do a declaration saying, this is an unprecedented circumstance. This is my client. This is what she wanted. I'm signing this. So those are some things that we're going to have to navigate. Are they going to work? I don't know. Nobody knows, right? Because they haven't had to be put into practice yet. But if there were ever a situation that we would have to forego notarization, I think this is one. And unfortunately, in California, we don't have remote notarization. They've been passing it in other states. We really need it here so that you could do a Zoom meeting, and you could do remote notarization for people, but we haven't gotten there yet.
It seems to me that the better practice, even though I appreciate you thinking out of the box like that, is people should be prepared to have their documents notarized. I mean, that's what I would hope people would do, unless it is so dangerous. I mean, we're coming up now on the week where, unfortunately, it's going to peak, as far as the contagiousness of this virus. And, so everybody's got to take into account their own personal safety.
Right.
So generally, how long does it take? You get a phone call, from one of your clients and says, okay, Ali, I'm about to head out into the world because I've got to, do some specific work. I want this done. How long do you think it would take?
Just for the advanced directive?
Yeah.
No. I mean, it takes a couple days. It's not, the directive itself doesn't take long. It just depends on what other work is happening. Yeah, but it's not, I always, this, if people need things rushed, I'm happy to kind of put them to the front of the line, because I get it, I get it. It's, we either, the urgency or getting sick or something like this always pushes this to, the front of people's minds. And
I do know that about you, because I call you all the time. Say, Ellie, could you help me? And you're like, okay, got to drop what I'm doing because old Don is asking for another question, or as a client that I need to meet. So I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we've covered the issue pretty thoroughly right now. What would you say in closing to people out there that are considering whether or not they need an advanced directive?
Oh, there's no question. You need one. Get one. It's as I said, it's not a complicated document. It can't hurt to have one. Take this time. Think about who would be a good agent for you, right? So think about somebody who hopefully is relatively close, geographically close, because I think that does make a difference. Someone who knows you well enough that you can talk to them and would make decisions, based on what you want and not what they want. And somebody who can advocate for you, right, in the hospital, and think about what you would want at the end of your life, or if you're ill, and engage someone to do it. There's no reason not to. If you're over 18, you need an advanced healthcare directive, especially now.
Especially now. So, Ellie, you were wonderful again. I so much appreciate having you as a partner, and thank you for being on the podcast again. We'll see you next time.
I can't wait. Thank you. Stay safe.
Okay, and thank you to our audience, and we'll see you next time on Exhibit A.
For more information, visit us at PasadenaLawOffice.com.